Hi everybody, I'm an addict. My name's Kara. Hi Kara. I'd like to open this workshop with a moment of silence, followed by the We Virgin. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, on behalf of the Cabin Fever Prevention Convention Committee, we would like to thank you for coming and helping us to show that no addict need ever die from the horrors of addiction. The hotel has gone to great lengths to provide us with a clean and friendly space for our convention. We as participants need to act responsibly to ensure a welcome return in the future. The convention committee asks that you, 1, bear in mind that your conduct is a direct reflection of NA. 2, please keep in mind that not everyone wants to stay up all night. We need to have peace and quiet in the hallways between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. and try to keep the noise in rooms to a minimum. 3, there will be no gambling or sleeping in the hospitality room or other public areas of the hotel. 4, access to all cabin fever activities requires you to wear your name badge. 5, individuals will be responsible for any damage done to their rooms. 6, checkout time is 12 noon. 7, please use the trash cans and ashtrays. 8, no pictures during meetings, and please ask at other times. In keeping with our traditions and steps of NA, we ask that you use NA language of recovery in all that you say at these meetings. We refer to our disease simply as addiction. We identify as simply an addict. We refer to our time in the program as clean time or recovery. This is not done to be different or better than or controversial. This is done because in our first step we have shifted the focus off the specific drug and onto the recovery process, leaving us with the single focus necessary for unity. Any label which implies more than one disease dilute the focus, and some of the unity called for in the first tradition is lost. In keeping with our 11th tradition, we did not feel it appropriate to invite media attention. However, there is always a possibility that they will show up. If you are approached by a member of the media, please refer them to the registration table. Could I have Scott come up and read Who is an Addict?
Scott, I'm an addict.
Scott.
Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know. Our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another. The getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of a continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same. Jails, institutions, and death. Oh my.
Thanks, Scott. Could I have Ed come up and read Why Are We Here?
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm an addict.
Hi, Ed.
Why are we here? Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction we were slowly committing suicide, but addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thanks, Ed. Could I have Brian come up and read How It Works?
I'm Brian. I'm an addict.
Hi, Brian.
How it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we had came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made a direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order, and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it, but do it. There is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, but the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society and everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take that first drug. If you are like us, you know that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol is different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug, period. We are people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover.
Thanks, Brian. Our topic is Small Town NA, and it's my honor and privilege to ask our first speaker, Debbie E., to come forward, please.
I'm Debbie, I'm an addict. And I do the yo-yo-yo thing a lot. I guess I'll stand up.
Sure.
I got asked to come and share on this topic yesterday afternoon because the original speaker didn't come, so you got me. But I have some experience with going to Narcotics Anonymous in a small town. And even though my home group is in a town that size-wise is not really all that small, when I first started going to meetings there, the fellowship was very small, and it's very small town-ish. And but my first home group, when I got clean the first time in 1989, I lived in a very small town, and there was no Narcotics Anonymous there. And so I traveled 40 minutes and went to a meeting in Lebanon, Missouri. And back then, when I first got there were, I don't know how many home group members there actually were, but I would venture to say 3 or less. And we didn't have tables or chairs. We sat on the floor, we had a basic text, and we had a coffee pot. And, I remember as time went on, people would ask me, how did you survive in that environment? And, the fact of the matter is we were very, very tight. And there was a lot of camaraderie. And that's what I've seen also when I moved and started going to meetings in Springfield, was that, there was a time for many years when every meeting that I went to, I knew everybody in those meetings. By the second time they came to a meeting, I knew their name, and I could tell you who they all were. And that was very important to me. And I have always felt very embraced and loved and accepted in those communities. And I've always felt like it was my job to do the same for people coming in. Lately, our meetings have gotten very large with a lot of people that we can't keep up with because of other outside entities sending people to our meetings. And we have struggled with that, and that's been a challenge. And we are constantly talking about and looking at ways to meet that challenge and to be able to still effectively carry the message to people who are coming into our meetings. But I do know that one of the things that happened for me was that, you know, we had to be tight, and I saw a lot of fights, but I also saw a lot of love. And the reason why was because, you know, there were a few of us doing a whole lot, and we were trying really hard to get the message out there and to bring as many people in and retain as many people as we could. I remember at one point in my area, I had become very active and involved in service work, and our area at one time had dropped to, I think we had about $150 or $200 in our bank account. And it was at the point where we didn't even know how we were going to pay our bills the next month. And so a couple other individuals and myself put on this dance to raise this money, and we called it the Save the Area Dance. And we had a picture of a drowning man on the flyer, and you know, because we really felt like our area was, well, we knew we were in dire straits. The group certainly would survive, but you know, the other services that we tried to provide within our area were, you know, were in danger of becoming extinct. And so we put this dance on, and we got a lot of support, and we made enough money to keep going, and things came back up. And that's the way I've seen things happen a lot in our area. And sometimes I see people getting real afraid, people who haven't always been here, and people getting real afraid and going, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it? There's not enough money. I'm like, believe me, we'll survive. If nothing else, we'll put on a drowning man dance. So that's been one of the things I feel that it's what I believe about where I live. We have a lot of small towns in our area. It's a very rural type setting, even though there is one very large city in our area. The rest of the towns are all very, very small and have very small fellowships and very small memberships. And so a lot of our challenge, I believe, is in public information and outreach. You know, that we have to be able to effectively go out and help these groups. And, you know, a lot of times I believe it's just about moral support. You know, sometimes it's just about, you know, hey, just hang in there. It'll grow. It'll get better. Because I know that when I first started coming to meetings in the town I live in, there were maybe a third of the groups that there are now. And I've watched it grow and get really, really big, to the point now where we really need to form some more groups, you know, to be able to handle what we've got. On a personal level, what that has done for me, I know that I have had some very traumatic, challenging times in my recovery. At 2.5 years clean, my daughter died, and I know that people just swarmed and enveloped me, and people, you know, people walked me through that. People were right beside me every step of the way. They were at my house. They were in my way every time I tried to take a step. But, you know, the deal is, I believe that that's what got me through that. You know, there were a lot of people who carried me through that. And, you know, for me, I've gone to meetings in large cities, and I've never really quite felt the same. I think it's just about where you start out. You know, that's what I believe. I think you're just used to what you're used to. I know, though, that some of the challenges that we face are, well, especially in my area, is retention of clean time with women. And so one of the challenges that we have is that anybody over 3 years clean has a whole lot of sponsees, you know, and new people coming in have a hard time. You know, we have a really hard time keeping up and being able to effectively help all these people. And that's one of the things that that I personally struggle with and that I worry about to a degree, you know, is how can we keep up with this? How can we, you know, and there have been times when I've, you know, gone to certain women and said, you know what, you have to stay. You have to, because we need your help. And, you know, there's a handful of us and we can't sponsor everybody. We can't help everybody. You know, we really need you to stay in here and be with us and help us. One of the other things that I think that that we face as a challenge is sometimes for us there's a real mixed message because of people who live, like in the town where I go to meetings, and granted I drive 40 minutes to go to my home group or any other meetings, but in the town where I go to meetings, there are meetings 7 days a week, and some days 3 and 4 a day, and that's not a difficulty. But there are a lot of groups in our area who don't have that luxury, and they have maybe 1 or 2 NA meetings a week that they are able to go to, and so you know, I know a lot of people find themselves going to another fellowship to try to hang on and get what they need, and you know, sometimes we face the struggle of a mixed message a lot, of the language mostly is what I'm talking about. Our language tends to get kind of diluted, and you know, I don't know what the balance is in all that. I think that patience, as Mike, wherever he is, was talking about earlier in a workshop we were in, patience and tolerance and a lot of compassion and taking extra time to talk to people and help people to understand what our language is and why we feel it's necessary to stick with that language. But I think that for me, it would be very difficult for me to move to a city and go. I've been to meetings in large cities where, you know, there were people in a group that never went anywhere else. They just had their group in this one section of town where they lived, and they never went anywhere else. And I think that would be very difficult for me, coming from where I come from. You know, there's a lot of carpooling. There's a lot of times when we will, you know, we'll get a bunch of people in a couple of cars, and we'll go to another area and go to functions. You know, those are the kinds of things that I have had to do in order to stay involved in recovery, in order to stay excited about recovery and really want to be here. Because one of my big deals when I got clean was I really felt like if I got clean, what would I do? I'm not going to have a social life. I'm not going to be able to play anymore. You know, that was my big deal. And, you know, well, we all know I play more now than I ever did. You know, all I did before was sit in a bathroom, hole up in a house. You know, Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to get out of the house and have relationships with people and be able to interact and have some fun. And so, you know, that's been real important. But I think that, you know, aside from some of the challenges that we have faced over the years, I really, I wouldn't have it any other way, you know, because of, you know, the bonds that have come through that. I believe that, you know, I know for us in our area that when we've had to really struggle and work really hard to stay together and, you know, to keep things going, it's made us a lot stronger. I think it's a lot of the reason why I've stayed clean, because at times I've had to work so hard for it, you know, and it made me appreciate it a hell of a lot more than if I could just, you know, walk into a meeting anywhere where people didn't necessarily know me, and I didn't really have to do anything to help keep that going, you know, and I'm really grateful for that experience. I am. And I told Andy today that he's going to be cleanup and that he's going to be picking up all my slack, so I'm done.
Our next speaker is my ever spiritual husband, Andy M.
I hope this table can hold me, because I want to go
Watch
down.
the mic.
Coming at it. My name's Andy.
I am Andy.
And I am prepared. I was.
He's lost.
All right.
Write it down.
I wrote it down. And now I lost it.
Oh, God. It's not in my
All right.
purse.
Anyway, talk about small town recovery. Getting clean in a small town, I did. Start off, I will tell how it happened. 1989, I came out of the treatment center in Wyandotte County, Kansas. We used to go to meetings, NACA, AA. I go home 30 days later. I'm released, not sure what's going on, kind of confused. Just know I didn't have to stick needles in my arms anymore. There's no NA meetings in this town. So I go to the AA meeting. They immediately point out to me who the other dopers are. Because I'm in a small town, so everybody knows who's who in the zoo in a small town. So they tell me, this guy and this guy, they're meeting over at the boys club on Saturdays, so you guys might want to go over there and talk. So to me, I looked around at who these guys they were pointing out with, and again, small town. They weren't guys I hung out with, they weren't guys I knew. I didn't go hang out with them. I got high. And I stayed high for quite a while, in and out. But then somebody started NA somewhere. It wasn't me, but some other people started it. After a couple treatment centers later, there's a little bitty NA meeting on a little building that didn't even sit. It sat crooked on the street, okay? Little bitty, and we all met in there. And after we leave, the other fellowship, they'd come in. Some people would stay, some people would leave. And there was everybody did everything. AA went to NA, NA went to AA, and the message was mixed, right? So, didn't stay, went back out, came back a few more times. By this time, I'd helped NA find another place. And in a small town where everybody knows everybody's business, the town folks know who the addicts are, right? So when you call up and say, can we rent out a room for addicts? You know, they laugh at you, hang up on you. You know, they don't want you in their building. But believe it or not, a bank took us in. We were in the basement of a bank, and there was the vault right in the same room. So we're in this meeting, right? And it's going pretty good. You know, meeting starts at 7:50. Half the group runs out and goes down the street to AA. And that's the way it was for a long time. And I guess it still wasn't done. And I couldn't stay clean. So I went down about 100 miles south, down to Debbie's hometown, put myself in the Oxford House, and got to know a bunch of people in NA who did NA things, who had NA sponsors, who went to just NA meetings. And that's what I did. I can still remember going into a meeting and hearing Debbie and one of her good friends laughing so hard. It was either going to do two things. It was going to scare me completely out of NA, or I was going to stay for just seeing if somebody could have so much fun. And so I stayed. You know, and I haven't looked back since. And I stayed with Survivors Noon meeting. And now I want to back up a minute. How many people here are from small town, NA? Well, hell, I'm preaching to the choir. You all know this. You know what's going on. But anyway, so I stayed down about 3 months, not 3 months, I'm lying, about a month and a half. And I moved back to this small town. And here I come, bouncing in this basement of this bank. And they're already taking bets on how long I'm going to stay in. But I come in with some fired up NA that I learned down in South Missouri. They had good NA down there in Greene County.
You tell them.
And he was there. He was still there. He went to one of the midnight meetings, I think. But I get there. I go down the steps, and there's a guy that I used to get loaded with on a regular basis, was sitting over there. He just moved back to Kansas City at 3 years clean. You know, that was a miracle. And then this other character, he came back from Minnesota, telling everybody he's from Minnesota, but he's really he's a Missouri redneck. I liked them because they had this strong NA thing going. And they were just thumping NA. I mean, throwing basic texts at people, telling them take that Andy shit down the road. And, you know, and I was right on there. I was like, right on, let's go. And Because we go to those AA meetings, and you say, hey, I'm an addict. And these old men would say, your meeting's down the street. And so we didn't waste no time when they came in and said, we're alcoholics. Your meeting's down the street. And so somebody told me, you're acting just like the people that ran you out of that fellowship. You're acting just like it. This is a program of attraction. Patience, tolerance. Tell them why you identify yourself as an addict. Why it's all inclusive. Why is it important just to work 12 steps? Get a sponsor. Who has an NA sponsor? Who has an NA sponsor? Sound like Jimmy T now. But you know what I mean. So, but you know how a small town is. Everybody knows everybody. You walk into that room, it better be principles over personalities, because this might be somebody you hated in school sitting right across the hall or right across the room. Your worst enemy might be in that room. Somebody you ripped off is probably in there. Somebody ripped you off probably is in there. Somebody that dated your sister is probably in there. Everybody you know in that town is in there, and you all know each other, and you're sizing each other up. Going, what do you know about this? I know you. And then the relationships start. And then one person has dated everybody in the room. It's real. And then you got the people trying to date everybody. And everybody knows everybody's business. And okay, here it is. We're at the bank, right? The bank is on the strip in Stadium, Missouri. This is where I'm talking. Stadium, Missouri. Anybody's been to State Fair knows Stadium, Missouri. The bank is right next to Dairy Queen. And so everybody, you've been driving around that car for years, that town in the same little car. So now your car is at this meeting, right? Everybody else's car is at this meeting. Everybody in town knows you're at a meeting that night, or because you know that you have no business in that bank. Unless you're robbing it or something, but because you don't have a bank account. I couldn't get a checking account when I got clean. They were going to give me checks. So everybody knew your business. So what? You saw my car at the dope house. Remember, we are in a small town. There's one thing about a small town, you cannot hide. You can't hide. And I used to hide because I'd run Columbia. Because when I was in Sedalia, I had to talk. If you had 6 months clean, you was an old timer, and you had to talk. So I'd run Columbia, because up there they got 80 people in a meeting. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can just sit there and if you're not, unless you're real fast, you don't get to talk anyway. They got it down to science. They know when somebody's going to stop, somebody starts. So that was real cool, but here's what I do. I'd hear all this good stuff, and I'd see how they were running their meetings. And I'd drive down the highway. Boom, man, I knew it all, because I'd tell everything somebody else said in Columbia and make myself look really good. It wasn't my experience, but I would always give the credit to somebody. Said, man, this one guy said this, one guy said that. And then Columbia, they do this in meetings, and they do this in meetings. And this was not met with open arms, folks. Small towns are set in certain ways. These people look at me and go, you're not in Columbia. I say, okay. Well, then, we'd get into personalities would come way before the principles. And then when somebody told me to start a new meeting, all you needed was a resentment and a coffee pot. Well, because they told me, because those 3 addicts who met, all of a sudden we got a couple recruits. We were the Nazi patrol. And we started another meeting. And it all started over, we wanted to have more NA in town, is what happened. So you wouldn't have to run to an AA meeting if you didn't want to. Because their excuse was there's not enough NA, so we got to go there. Well, let's open more than 2 NA meetings a week, okay? Let's have more than 2. Let's have 2 more. All right, we got a spot for it. We got a time for it. Let's go. We start arguing about the time. Because, NA met at 7, AA met at 8. Well, because they met at 8, we were going to start at 8. Okay? They didn't like it. So there's about 3 of us, 5 of us went and started this new meeting, basement of a church, some of the most spiritual meetings I've ever been in. This was the basement of a black church, right? It was really cool. And it was in the black community in Sedalia. Anybody knows anything about Sedalia? It's one of them old-fashioned towns. Got the railroad tracks, divide the whites from the blacks. You know, it's not right. That's the way it is. And a lot of dope was over on that black side of town. And people, we'd say, come on, come to the meeting. No, I ain't coming over there. I said, you went over there to buy your dope. You know? But they would, but anyway, what happened is, it got away from the we thing. And it started being a us, them thing. And you know, that's not what this program is about. That's not what the principles of this program are about. It's not what the traditions teach me. It's not what the steps teach me. It's not what my sponsors taught me. But they had to teach me how to be a little bit more tactful and compassionate. You know, I had to learn that. And that took some time. So, anyway, I was still struggling with this us and them, but I was not stopping in my recovery. I was still road tripping to different towns. Columbia was strong, you know, and I really loved going there. But we couldn't get anybody to come back. You know, wasn't a lot of addicts coming down the road to support this little town. And, you know, we went all around. More small towns would seem like they would support the small towns. You know, and we started looking like poor folks trying to get the rich folks to come help us. It ain't happening. You know, all of a sudden it'd be one great big charitable contribution, one lump sum. You know, a whole van load would come one time. You know, and that'd be it. We here, we doing our, good to see you, we're getting the hell out of here. Because, you know, it was fun though, but if I wanted recovery, I had to go get Debbie talked about it. You know, it made me stronger. Because I did not want to go use. I want to stay clean. And the people did not want to travel a road trip and do what they had to do to get their recovery. Well then, they stayed there. I traveled. You know, I road tripped. I made sure I picked up a key tag my first year in a different town. That was my goal. You know, I picked them up in Springfield, in Kansas, in Minnesota, Columbia, the city. I mean, I was my sponsor now. That's how we worked steps. Was on the road. You know, we talked them all the way. You know, I thought I'd have to write them because we talked about them for miles. Right? I learned real quick. You got to write them things. But it was a good plan for a while. It kept me clean. But there's one thing about small towns. There's no such thing as meeting maintenance. Not when you have 2 meetings a week. That's hard to do meeting maintenance. You know, it's perseverance. You gotta work steps. You gotta get out of yourself. And I did. I would go to that other bank meeting, and even though I was looked at like, oh God, here he comes, when I'd walk in there, because I just wait for somebody to say, and to this, or and to that. And it was, there's a new topic tonight. We're talking about andas. And, you know, it's the way it was. And eventually, what happened is, the meeting in the church, after about a year or 2, it died off. People moved. People quit coming. We didn't get a lot of support. We didn't get hardly any support from that other group at all. You know, so eventually I got a resentment from that group. My home group is 45 minutes away from them. And it stayed like that until that group closed. This is another small town. So I gotta go back to this bank. You know, hi, I'm back. But then things have changed. Some people are still there. A lot of people have gone. You know, and if we had 12 people in the meeting, that was a crowd. You know, that was a crowd. So we started meeting there a lot, and I don't know, the meeting went good for a long time. You know, people started doing NA, and somehow the people that wanted to go to A finally just settled in AA. People that wanted to go to NA finally stuck with NA. You know, and then that was really cool. And then we got some more meetings going, and it kind of grew. Then the meetings would die because of lack of support. What happens that I see in these small towns is people come in from treatment or whatever, they're clean, they're gung-ho, man, and they want a meeting every night, and they just love it. You know how you go from step 1 to step 12 and about that fast, you know? And they get their cousins and their brothers, small town, mind you. And everybody they know come to a meeting, right? And it's a family affair. And all of a sudden it's like, well, we need more meetings. Let's have them every night. So they say, okay, look, and I'm going, no, you don't want to do that. But they do it. Like, okay. So for about the first 6 months, somebody's got to open those meetings every night. Somebody's got to start that coffee every night. Somebody's got to pay rent. Well, I tried to. These people started getting clean. You know how your life starts coming back? You start paying attention to your family. You get a job. Some of them go to school. Some of them start spending time with their children. They're thinking, man, I ain't got time for a meeting every night. And so those every night meetings start to dwindle down again to where you got 2 people showing up on Mondays, 1 on Tuesdays, 2 on Wednesdays, 1 on Thursday, none on Friday. Especially none on Friday. They got races on Friday. So nobody shows up on Friday. So what happens, we've out-meetinged ourselves. And so a newcomer comes in, they see 2 people there. They ain't coming back. They're going down the street. And it happens. You know, small towns, it's hard. It's really hard. You know, I've been told by people in big towns, move out of there. Move to the big town. Well, you know, some people can do that. Some people can't. Some people have families, they have their roots there, they have their jobs, and they just can't up and move. Right? So, you have to make the best of it. So we stay in this small town in A, and eventually, in this hometown, well, I don't even live there anymore. I moved because of the job change, okay, into another small town. And it's going on there today. And, you know, I've said at meetings, I'll say at night times out meetings itself. And it's getting to be that us and them thing in this town I live in now. You know, somebody got a resentment in a coffee pot and started a meeting. And there's people that won't go to that meeting because so-and-so's at that meeting. You know, and they're shooting the messenger. Even though that messenger's got a really good message. You know, it happens. You know, we talk about it in meetings, and you know, it sounds like I'm stating here the problem, and it's the solution. You know, what's the solution for this? You know, be grateful. There's a meeting, right? It takes 2 people to have meetings, what the basic text tells me. So, you know, that meeting back at that church, when I was back up a little bit, the last, 4 months it stayed open. It was a Tuesday night. Because that meeting was 2, 3, 4 nights a week. Somebody had the bright idea. Let's have a meeting every night. You know, it don't work in small towns. Unless you got a heck of a commitment and nothing else to do. But I was the only person showing up. And I'd open the doors, and I'd sit there, half hour, 45 minutes, see if anybody would show up, and go home. And it kept me clean, just doing that. Because I finally had to shut the doors the following Tuesday night, I'm feeling really weird. This is my night to open. What am I going to do? You know, that hurt. There was an emptiness inside me when that happened. Just by going and opening that door. But, you know, solutions are, you know, I think small towns have to take it upon themselves that, look, we might know each other. Yeah, we know each other what we did as kids to each other. Yeah, we grew up with each other. But you know what? We got our similarities. Isn't that what they tell us to focus on around here, is your similarities, not your differences? We're addicts. We don't want to use. We want to live. So quit beating everybody up when they come in. Welcome them, you know, and tell them keep coming back. You know, give them rides. But the small towns cannot rely on the big towns to carry. No more than a newcomer can rely on somebody to carry them. You know, carry the message, not to add it. It's like carrying the group. You know, if people from the big towns came down in their bus every week, you know, is that really reasonable? No. People in the big towns got lives. They got jobs. They got commitments. It's not their fault they was born in a big city. You know? That's just the way it happens. You know? If you want to stay clean, you can do it. But you got to be willing to work at it. Maybe a little harder. You can't wait for somebody else to open that meeting for you. Like I said, you can't hide. You might have to step up and be a GSR. I was a GSR for years. And years. And years. And when also, and you don't get one service position in a small town. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. You can be the chairperson, the treasurer, the secretary, the GSR, the alternate GSR, and the taxi. You know? It's okay. If it's keeping you clean, you keep on doing it, man. But then show somebody how to do it. Because I think as addicts sometimes, hey, I've been doing this so long, can't nobody do it right but me. Sometimes you got to step aside and say, "Come, let me show you how to do it." And sometimes you have to just let it go and let those newcomers make their mistakes. I see it on the area level sometimes. You see trusted servants in area positions who've been there so long that when newcomers come in and take over, we're going over stuff the area went over 10 years ago because they're doing the same mistakes we made. It's okay. That's how you learn. And they ought to never be organized. You know, we learn. But somebody's got to let go so somebody can learn, step up, and do it. And there for a long time, they would say, "Hey, come on, why don't you be this? Why don't you do this?" Nope. Nope, nope, no. Don't ask me, I ain't doing it. I'll show up, and I'll share, and I'm going home. And I'm probably going to an out-of-town meeting tomorrow if anybody wants to go. And if you know about the small towns and those road trips, you know that when you plan this meeting, you need a Greyhound bus to get there, right? When it's actually time to go to that meeting, you can take a motorcycle. Because the time that next week rolls around, everybody that says they're going to go has got something else to do. True. Every now and then you get a whole bus load to go, but not very often. You know, I think it just goes in cycles. I don't know. I know it's a lot of fun when you get a bunch of people after a meeting in a small town to go invade one of your local restaurants. You know, because everybody knows everybody. You know, and you see people there, you know, and they see you and you're acting real silly, and you're having fun, and your eyes are open, and you're laughing. It's a good time. You know, but I've also seen it go bad. You know, there's a group not too far from here, small town. They got some of the best recovery around. About 100 miles straight up 54 highway. I think you might have to get on 63 to get there. A little north I-70. You know why? Because they work steps, they work traditions, they study traditions, and they hang out together. They meet at so-and-so's house and have little parties, Super Bowl parties. They have New Year's Eve parties. They have let's just come hang out parties. you know, and they have fun, right? But I've seen that happen, and that's when it works in a small town. But I've seen small towns where I ain't hanging out with you. I know you are. I know what you're all about. I ain't hanging out with you. I ain't hanging out with you. I ain't hanging out with you. And everybody, when that meeting's over, boom, they go their separate ways. They don't see each other. They don't see each other for a week, sometimes 2. You know, and then they get rumors in a small town, gossip in a small town meeting. Well, you know how it is in the big town, so you can imagine how it is in a small town. You know, what's the joke? It's gossip when they're talking about me. It's concern when I'm talking about you. But, you know, is it worth it? Throw my stuff out on the table. Yeah. Keeps me clean. I throw it out there. Sometimes not everybody likes it, but it keeps me clean. So, you know, what I'm saying is, small towns, it's up to you. You know, you can put your personalities aside, work in principles, or you're going to die. You know, work the steps or die. I can't say the rest of that. But you know, it's the principles too. You guys know that. It's hard. It's not easy. When you show up for a meeting and nobody's there to unlock the door. Well, somebody's there. But finally, we got kicked out of that bank. And this is another thing that addicts might face. I don't know if you face this in a big town or not. But this bank would rent out that meeting room to everybody in town that wanted it, right? Not everybody, to a lot of people. And a lot of people throw really wild parties down there. I mean, and break stuff. Who do you think got the blame for that? The freaking addicts did it. No, we didn't. Because we were taught that we leave things cleaner than when we found it. There you go. Because our reputation's on the line. Just like Kara read here. You know, we trash this hotel, they're going to remember it. We keep it clean and stay cool here, they're going to remember us. You know, but eventually they threw us out. I think they thought we were breaking the stuff, so what they did, they raised the rent so high that it just wasn't practical to stay there. And now check this out. The meeting now is in the projects. Okay, I remember I told you about the black-white thing in this town, and the railroad tracks, and the dope, a lot of dopes on the north side. Well, so the meeting is right now in the hood. It's in the projects, right? Well, a lot of people ain't coming over there. That's sad. They're afraid. You know, this is 2004 and people are still afraid. That is just wrong. You know, hell, I ran around there when I was 10 years old. I'm not afraid to go over there when I'm 40. You know, and today I'm staying clean behind it. But one thing, you know, I guess drugs used to be a big city thing. You know, that's why NA started in the big cities, because you had that heroin and cocaine and all that stuff that's in the big cities. I'm telling you, farm boys know how to grow some dope. I don't know too many anhydrous tanks that are in the city. You know, those little, I don't know if you know, but Missouri is known for that new drug that's bringing in a whole new kind of addict. And it's taking names, it's killing people, it's wiping out families, and it's not in the big cities. It's in them little bitty, tiny towns. Amen. And one thing is really great happening in this state, and you know, it's a good thing. The mid-Missouri area is huge. It's a big area. And North I-70 is talking about starting a new area. And it's not because they got a resentment and a couple coffee pots. It's because they finally found that anhydrous addict out there in that little tiny town that needs a meeting. You know, there's a population, you know, the city limit signs, you are now entering out of this little bitty town. Well, that town is loaded with meth labs, right? And so And in the hometown, my hometown state, when I used to live in, they're even talking about starting an area through the middle, because between Columbia, Kansas City, really not much. Between the Iowa State line and Springfield, not a lot through that middle area there, guys. And there's a whole lot of farmers out there.
Amen.
You know, and there's a whole lot of addicts in them little tiny towns, you know, that are probably going to the other fellowship, being told to shut up and heard a different message. You know, so these new areas hopefully can help these NA grow and put NA in little tiny towns. You know, addiction does not stay in the city. It's kind of like the drugs. You know, I don't know if it's conspiracy theory or whatever that got them drugs in there, but they got out. They went to the suburbs, they went to the country, and then they do your backyard. If you know, if you're from a little tiny town, you know it. And we need meetings there. There's addicts there. Those nights you guys aren't doing anything, go visit them. Help them start a meeting. Be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem. You know, be part of the solution. Go help start a meeting. You know, they're out there. Just like us. And I asked that question, how many from small towns? A lot of hands got raised. You know. What's your town like? Is your meeting strong? Is it us or them? Or is it we? You know, do some outreach. Have a little resentment with outreach. Outreach don't mean going across town. You know, outreach, get out, drive a while. You know, get out of your comfort zone. You know, it's just our nature to want to hang out with people we know, who we're comfortable with, right? Right or wrong? So, go get around somebody you don't know. How many people have sat around people you don't know at this convention? How many are sitting by somebody you don't know now? Are you grouped up with people you know? Reach out. Meet somebody. Go visit a various group. Go help a newcomer. You know. The only way NA is going to grow is we help in small towns. That's where it's going to go, because that's where it's at. The addict is out there today. You guys know it. Prisons are full of them. I work in one. I see them all the time, and I look and go, I see the name of the town they're from, and I go, what? And I try to send them to a meeting. And I don't know what to tell them. I was telling the guy the other day, when you go to NA, you're going to be welcomed. Newcomer's the most important person there. You know what he told me? He said, I went to an NA meeting in a small town. Nobody said nothing to me. Nobody talked to me. And I left, never went back. You know, that's not the message I think NA wants to send out. You know, what are we doing for the addict who hasn't got to that meeting yet? And that's what was taught to me. Show up. Because somebody was there when you were there. Somebody welcomed you. Somebody gave you a key tag and a phone number. So, anyway, I'm done.
I'd like to thank our speakers, Debbie and Andy, for some good info. And we'll close up with the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Yeah.
Circle up now. Let's don't make this difficult.
After a moment of silence for the addicts suffering in the small towns who haven't found recovery yet, we'll close with the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Come back and work with the
Oh, man, that was cool.
I was.
Thank you. I'm in the PI subcommittee
right.
there in Springfield. And,
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie's
Public information. Yeah.
Debbie's big inspiration to all of us there. She's
Yeah.
something else.
She was a good speaker too.
She is. I didn't get a chance to hear her speak.
She looks like she's on fire from that.
She really is. Yeah, she just loves the PI.
That's important duty there.
Yeah,
It really is.
Yeah, I've been editing the meeting directory.
Have you?
Yeah,
Service works good. I chair a meeting on Tuesdays, and it's really helped me stay clean because
Me too.
I know since I had that responsibility, I can't be relapsing. Because what's that going to say to the newcomer? You know, if you're chairing a meeting, you can't be relapsing because newcomer's going to be waiting with you. You know, so that responsibility helps me.
Me too. Yeah, I sure.
I enjoy doing it. It makes me feel good, like I'm doing something. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade this for anything.
Yeah, me either. Our lives were insanity before, you know, and I mean, I go to church and I have a strong faith in God, but not all those people at church can identify with an addict. You know, some of them never touch drugs or alcohol in their lives. So that's why I go to NA, and God helps me there too, you know. I mean,
Yeah, it's funny how he's everywhere.
yeah. Well, it was nice meeting you, Randall.
It's nice meeting you.
They discussed that. I mean, they're going to discourage that. I will. Tell me they're not discouraged that.
You want to see it?
Or will they want to see them on?
Some places, discourage the foster parents from trying to keep some of the parents don't want that, they feel like they're interfering or something. I think it's good when they do it. I had some friends who were foster parents for years, adopted 4 kids.
They've adopted a 10-year-old. They've got a 10-year-old. Skippy.
Really means a lot.
Yeah, it's a special thing. I mean, I told the social worker, plus I used to work at the MS as a case